They would cry a lot, but it was tearless crying. When I asked them to describe their mother, they insulted her. The vase, the ribbon, the honour roll. And they cried a lot, but it was tearless crying. You better kill me, because if you don't, I'm going to kill you. I hate you. It was tearless crying. Welcome to Extraordinary Stories Podcast. Hey, how are you? Are you well? Are you good? I am. I should really add to that, are you safe? Are you okay? I hope so. Strange times indeed, but let's not dwell on it. Instead, let's tell stories. Okay, quick shout outs and then on with the story. Alright, we're going to start with a big hello to Erin Maguire. Hello Erin. I know you've been listening for a while and I said I would do a shout out, so here it is. Hi Erin. Hello Kate Ashley, who listens with her mum. Now Kate, you'll need to get in touch and give me your mum's name. Kate is a new mum and she likes the podcast, so hello. Mark D. Smith. Hey, how are you? Thanks for listening. Maddie Miller. Hello Maddie, thanks for sending me stories and for signing off your Instagram message with keep it up buttercup, which I love. Amber Lynn Sherwood. Hello Amber, thank you for the hello. Heather Sigler. Hello Heather. Heather, I hear you are binging the podcast. Well, thanks for that, Heather. And finally, it's a happy birthday to Buttercup. Oh, hang on, that's 2 Buttercup mentions in the shoutouts. How weird. Yes, it's a happy birthday for the 24th of March to Buttercup, or Steve as we also could know him. And that's from your lovely wife, Chrissy. I hope you had a really lovely birthday and I hope the pair of you are well. Alright, shout outs done. Okay, a real horror show here, folks. No denying it. A big, fat, messy, unbelievable shit show of a story. And I love it. Are you ready? Okay, let's go. Imagine having a baby. Well, I mean, for lots of you, obviously, you don't have to imagine having a baby. Imagine having 2 babies. I mean, again, for some of you, that's going to be a reality. Now, imagine this. You are essentially a teenager when you learn that you are pregnant. And again, that won't be a shock for some of you. Well, it came as a bit of a shock to Nikki Whitehead. Now, Nikki was 17 when she learned that she was pregnant. Now, did Nikki have a steady boyfriend? Well, the simple answer is no. No, she did not. I mean, that's cool, fine. No judgment. She's just a teenager, having fun, and now she's found herself pregnant. Papa don't preach, I'm in trouble deep. I mean, come on, I could not resist Papa Don't Preach. If there was ever a song that was about teenage pregnancy, it's Papa Don't Preach. So forgive me, you singing haters, because that was just too obvious for me to miss. Okay, so Nikki's 17. What's her life like? What's her setup? Well, it's this. Nikki lives in Georgia, in the USA. Now, I'm saying that because American listeners love to get in touch and say, Barry, no one says in the USA. Well, I do. So Georgia, in the USA. Nikki is born in 1974. And I'm just going to say, it's not a great start. Nikki is born in prison. Her mother, Linda, had been put into prison for drug possession while she was pregnant, and so that's where Nikki is born. Okay, I mean, sad to say, but lots of babies get born in prison. So Linda gives birth to her daughter Nikki, and when she's free and she's out of prison, she tries to raise the baby. She really tries her absolute best, but due to things like drug issues and just some bad choices in her life, she ends up sort of going back in and out of prison. And so young baby Nikki gets taken to live with her grandmother Della, who we will get to shortly. Linda's mum Della raises her granddaughter Nikki really the best that she possibly can, while Linda sort of figures out how to stay sober and get a job. So far so good, okay, I hope that's clear. Now growing up, Nikki's got a really strained relationship with her mother Linda. They spend time together, and on occasion Nikki would move back home with her mum, but inevitably it never really worked. They would just end up fighting, shouting at each other, and always Nikki would find herself back at her grandmother Della's. And that cycle, it continues for years and years and years. It just goes round and round, and that's what was happening in that little family unit. I mean, it's weird. It's not really. I mean, I haven't heard it for a long time, and maybe you don't really hear it as an adult. But it's not uncommon for people to be raised by their grandparents. I'm thinking back to, I think when I was younger, I must have known at least 4, possibly 5 people who definitely had difficult relationships with their parents and therefore were raised by their grandparents. Maybe you are one of these people. Who knows? So as Nikki grows up, she's an okay student at school. It's kind of that she's not that interested. She's not really that interested in school. She just wants to sort of hang out, party. And again, this just causes more sort of friction between her and her mother, her and her grandmother. They really want her to settle down and make something good with her life, make good choices. Now, as she gets to about 15, 16, Nikki and Linda, well, they start to find a way to communicate slightly more. And now Nikki's 17 and she's pregnant. And it's to a guy that she barely knows. And she really needs her mum's help. So she goes to Linda, and Linda says, look, I'm not really in the best position, financially. I don't really have the stability. I'm not really in the best position to help you. You would be better going to your grandmother Della. She can support you through this. And so Della does. She agrees, okay, I'll take on my pregnant grandchild and I will help her through this. Now, at the time, Nikki was working as a hairdresser. You know, snip, 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 chop, chop, chop. That's the sound I like to make for hairdressers and barbers. Snip, 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 chop, chop, chop. Because that's kind of what I imagine they do. And what Della really, really wants for Nikki is she wants her, once she's given birth, to go to college. She wants her to go and pursue beauty therapy or fashion, or these are Nikki's major passions. These are the things that she's interested in, and Della's trying to say to her, look, once you've had the kids, that's the time you can go to college, get a qualification, and you know, and start to get your life on track. And it's around about now that Nikki is going to discover she isn't giving birth to one baby. Oh no, she's having two. And you know, listeners, I bloody love a twin story. I love it. I bloody love the twins. I'm so obsessed with twin stories. Great. So, Nikki's learned she's got two babies on the way. The time comes for her babies to be born, and with her mother by her side and her grandmother there, she gives birth. And she calls them, wait for it, Jasmina and Tasmina. Excellent. I love it when people use twin names like this. If I had twins, I would so call them Gary and Larry. Can you imagine? I think that's brilliant. Gary and Larry and their father Barry Henderson. I mean, amazing. How good would that be? Or I'd like totally call them like Frankie and Francis or something, or like Hetty and Betty. I'd love it. Right. So, Jasmina and Tasmina. These are the two baby names. Now, thankfully, thank God, they become known as Jazz and Taz, because I, quite frankly, did not want to spend this whole episode saying Jasmina and Tasmina over and over again. So we've got Jazz and we've got Taz. Alright, so how does Nikki get on with motherhood? Well, you know, she really wants to make a good go of it. She didn't have the best example in Linda. You know, Della is the sort of, I guess, matriarch of the family, and she's proven to be a pretty strong woman, Della, but you know, she's getting a bit older now, and really what Nikki wants is she wants to be able to raise her two daughters and be proud of them and then be proud of her. So this is what she does. She goes to Della and she asks, can we move in with you? Can me and the two babies come and live in your house? Because I feel like if we were a unit with you looking after us, we could really make a go of this. We could really, you know, I could raise these kids that they would really survive. And they do. The girls are happy. They're healthy. They grow into lovely, lovely young girls. They're well-mannered. They do really well at school. They join the Girl Scouts. At age 10, they make the honour roll at school. Now, I had to look this up because in the UK, we don't have... Well, no, we will. We do have something similar to this, but I can't remember what we call it. But it's not called the honour roll. But yeah, if you don't know what it is, it's like a sort of list that your name gets added to if you are achieving really good marks at school, if you're particularly excelling at sports, performing arts, or anything really, just that sort of sets you slightly above the general average student. So both of the twins make their way onto the school's honour list, and teachers will say they're absolutely model pupils. Like, they're brilliant. They're absolutely, these girls are fantastic. So for Nikki, it's like, excellent. She's raising two girls that she can be really proud of. Now, don't get me wrong, she pushes them quite hard to be as academic as they can. You know, she's really like on top of them about homework, about making sure they stay focused. And yeah, okay, that's her right as a mother, I think, to do that. So the twins are just sort of going through this at the moment. How's Nikki herself actually doing? Well, she's struggling a little bit. She's trying her best to make money out of hairdressing, to support the girls, to bring money into the family home, and there's not a great deal of money going around, but she does manage to save up a little bit of money just for herself. And when the girls turn 12 years old, Nikki has sort of fallen into some of her old behaviours, in that she's doing a little bit of drugs here and there. Nothing huge, right? Nothing massive, but just a little bit of drugs here and there. And the relationship between her and her two 12-year-old girls is getting a little bit strained. It's just getting a little bit tense. Now, Nikki makes a decision here, and I'm just going to be honest, I don't think this was the best decision you could have made. But anyway, this is the decision she makes. With the little bit of money that she has saved, she decides that she's going to move her and her two daughters out of Della's home, and she's going to take Jazz and Taz, and they're going to live 20 miles away. So they're going to stay within the Georgia area, but they're going to be 20 miles away, because now Nikki thinks she wants to raise the girls just on her own. She doesn't want her grandmother in the situation anymore. So, I mean, looking at it from the twins' point of view, looking at it for Jazz and for Taz, all they'd ever known was growing up in the house with their mother and great-grandmother. And now, all of a sudden, they're being taken out of that to live just with their mum. And, okay, that's fine. That's what Nikki wanted. So, she moves away. Della helps them out financially with a little bit more money, and they manage to get themselves a house. And how does this go? Well, at first, it's okay. I say it's okay because it is just okay. There's a lot of tension between the two girls and their mum. The two girls will argue with Nikki and say she's too strict on them. She's constantly on their back about homework, deadlines, and they say, it's just a bit much, you're pushing us too hard to get good grades, to achieve all the time. And Nikki will say, well, I'm just doing what a good mother should do. The twins will say, can we not just go back to Della's? Can we not go back and live with our great-grandmother? Because there, the rules were just a little more relaxed. And what they mean by relaxed is that Della wasn't necessarily the greatest of disciplinarians. So the girls kind of got away with stuff around her that they don't necessarily get away with around their mother. It's a funny thing, that old relationship. I'm pretty sure everyone will have sort of had this in some varying form. The kind of like relationship that perhaps you have with your grandparents is quite different from what your actual parents remember of their own parents. Do you know what I mean? It's almost as if parents are like quite like firm and quite hard on their actual kids, but then when it comes to their grandkids, they're almost like a completely different person, and the things don't quite add up. You hear a lot of like parents who'll go, yeah, your gran or your grandpa might be like this now. They were not like that when I was growing up. And it's just, you sort of hear that a lot. And I don't know, I think that always kind of fascinates me as a part of like, what changes there? What changes in people that when they become a grandparent, it's, they suddenly relax about things, or they become really different about how they view things. I just think there's something interesting in it. So, the next stage in the twins' life that's going to prove to be the biggest challenge. High school arrives, and whether we like to think it or not, high school, it changes people. It changes kids. I mean, I could go on a rant here about how the high school system is very damaging in comparison to the primary or elementary system, but I won't. But I could. So Jazz and Taz, they start high school. Now remember, not that long ago, they were honour roll students. I realise when I'm saying honour roll, it sounds like I'm saying on a roll. Like, I'll have my chicken on a roll. Or, hey mister, I'm on a roll. But I'm not, I'm saying honour roll. So they go to school, and quite quickly, Nikki starts to see some changes in them. The girls are moody. They have frequent outbursts at their mother. They tell Nikki they would rather go and live with their great-grandmother because she is way better to live with. Nikki's gotten herself into a really tricky spot here because she's moved miles away from the support system that she had, and now her two precious girls are changing in front of her and turning into quite difficult teenagers. So the tension in the house, it begins to bubble up and it bubbles up, and Nikki's struggling. Now, this is the thing that I have wanged on about before. The power of two. Twins and their twinness. Whatever that means. But they become a force. Nikki isn't just dealing with one challenging teenager. She's got herself a nightmare here. And so, a horrible set of circumstances starts to unfold. Nikki is really trying to get herself into a place where she's able to work full time, not take any sort of drugs, and just be a really good mother. But with so much fighting happening with her and her daughters, it's impossible. It's absolutely impossible, and so the girls move back to live with their great-grandmother, Della. So the twins are away, and it's at this point Nikki's own mother, Linda, steps in to the situation. And she says, Nikki, you need to get your girls back as soon as possible, because I don't like the way that Della is raising them. Just for clarification, if you've gotten lost, and I hope you haven't, Linda is talking about her own mother here. She's saying, I don't like the way that my own mother is raising my grandchildren. Well, I'm sorry. I think you've got a bit of a cheek, Linda. The bare-arsed cheek of it to just be like, I don't like the way that Della, my mother, is raising my grandchildren. Well, why the fuck you not raising them then? You step in, you do it. Okay, there might have been other circumstances that means she couldn't, but, you know, I just think that's annoying that she's just on the side going, well, I'm just going to say, Nikki, you need to get your girls back. What she's saying that Della isn't doing correctly is not teaching the girls respect, or she's not teaching them how to be good people in the world. So Nikki is listening to this, and she starts to think, okay, I will get them back. I'll have another go at raising my daughters. So she gets her daughters back, and in Nikki's opinion, they're actually worse than they were before. They're now these two teenage girls who lie, who steal, they won't listen to any rules whatsoever. Nikki accuses them both of being promiscuous and having boyfriends that they shouldn't have. Remember, they're about 13 or 14 years old at this point. Arguments in the house between the mother and Her twins are a daily occurrence, screaming loud, horrendous arguments. Nikki begins a series of calls to police to report that the girls are out of control. One night, Nikki wakes up to discover that Jazz, who is 14 years old, has left the house in the middle of the night to go and meet her boyfriend. And Nikki is frantic. Seriously panicked. So she calls police. Police find Jazz and they bring her home. And all that it does is it just causes more arguments in the household. On another occasion, Nikki calls police because her 2 teenage daughters are beating her up. And she says to the operator, "They are raising their hands to me, and you better send someone because God forbid I lift my hands to them. But I might have to. I just don't want something serious to happen here." Now, in the background of this phone call, the twins are screaming, "She's the one hitting us." So police arrive, they do a check, and they calm the situation down. And while police are there, Nikki says to police, "I'm not crazy here. My girls they're violent, and they scare me." Police, they note this down on the file for the family. The officer also writes, "The girls seemed very innocent, very sweet, but the look on their mother's face was fear. She was fearful of her daughters. She knew they worked together." Horrible times in that household. Nikki will accuse her daughters of smoking weed and being lazy. And they throw it right back at her. They say, "Well, you're the same. You smoke weed. You're lazy." And Nikki can't really argue back with that. So let's go to 2008. And at this point, the girls are 15 years old. Nikki's really not happy about the fact that the girls have their phones and they're using them to text boys late at night. They're using it to, go to their bedroom, and they're staying up to like 2, 3 in the morning, texting boys, going on, I don't know, maybe Snapchat wasn't invented, but you know what I mean, those kind of things. So she tries to discuss this with the girls, and it quickly escalates into an argument. And Nikki says, "I will take your phones from you, and you will no longer have them." And then all hell breaks loose. The twins jump on their mother and they begin to attack her. The 2 15-year-olds, they drag her by the hair through the bottom of the house, and they kick and they punch and they scratch their mother. They pin her down, and as they scream in her face, they continue to kick her body. Nikki gets up, she runs outside, she calls police and she asks them to hurry up. She's being attacked by her daughters. Now when police arrive, Nikki is outside of the house and she explains, "My daughters have lost the plot and they have just attacked me." Police enter the house and it's really clear, yes, there has been a struggle, there's furniture everywhere, the place is a mess. But the 2 girls are sitting calmly on the sofa. Jazz and Taz, they deny it. They say, "Our mother is the one who went crazy and attacked us." But the officer looking at the situation says, the mother has scratches on her neck, scratches on her chest, and she is hysterical. The girls, on the other hand, had no marks on them, no indication that there had really been any kind of altercation. He said, talking with them, I didn't believe a word those girls had to say. The officer in charge, Officer Scruggs, said, they could have been two strangers sitting in that room. And two strangers would have shown more emotion than those girls. They were emotionless as their mother stood there, terrified and hysterical. Awful. Awful, awful, awful. So just before we continue, and it's just going to get worse, can we just talk about the fact that the officer in charge was called Officer Scruggs? What kind of name is that? No, I don't want no Scruggs. Scruggs is a guy that can get no love from me. That's all I can think of. Anyway, this is an absolutely hellish time for Nikki, and she decides once more the girls need to go back to their great-grandmother, Della. She thinks, well, Della seems to have a way with them, a sort of ability to please the girls, to keep them under control. You know, I mean, what I think Nikki's not really getting here is, it's not that Della's got them under control, it's that Della lets them do what the hell they want. So actually, they're not complaining and moaning. There's no real fuss because Della just lets them do what they like. So the girls leave Nikki for a few months and they only speak to their mother by telephone. A few months pass and then Nikki decides she wants them back. Even though she knows the heartache and the agony and the constant arguing that comes from having them in the house, she misses them. And so she phones Della and she says, look, I want them back. Now for Della, this could not come at a better time because Della's now seeing a different side to the twins. When they've come back to live with her, she's starting to see a little bit of what Nikki is talking about. She finds the girls a bit odd and a bit frightening. Now, Della's in her late 70s at this point, and I mean, this is a big, huge sign of how she felt at this time. She actually gets a lock put on the inside of her bedroom door so that at night she can lock it because she's becoming quite scared of her great-grandchildren. That must have been so odd for her because remember, Della raised these girls since they were babies and now she's kind of seeing what Nikki's talking about. They've changed. Something is different. So Della's only too happy to send them back to Nikki. So they go back and it's a mess. It's fighting. It's screaming. It's more police visits to the house as the girls' behaviour becomes more violent towards Nikki. A judge steps in and orders that Nikki and her daughters should undertake a year's worth of therapy. And at first, the therapy works. It starts to calm things down in the house. During the time when they are in therapy, Jazz writes a letter to her mum which says, Mum, I do love you. It's been really hard, all of us being in this house and having problems forgiving each other. But I'm ready to move on, Mum. The more we argue, the worse it gets for us. And we've been getting on better for the past 2 weeks, so let's keep it going. We can work everything out, and we can be a family. Just let me know what you think. Love, Jazz. Okay, so now it sounds like Jazz and Taz, at least they are reaching out to Nikki and trying to find a better way to live as a family. But how long it's going to last, well, that's anyone's guess. And how long will they spend trying to exist as this cosy family? Well, not long, I can tell you. On the 13th of January 2010, Nikki has her usual morning battle. The same battle she has every morning, and that is waking the girls up for school. A nightmare. An absolute bollock. Well, no, hang on. She's female, so it wouldn't be a bollock. A boobache? Is that a saying? Is that a thing? Well, it is now. So, do you remember being a teenager and being woken up for school? It was like the worst thing that could ever happen to you. You were like, no, don't make me get up for school. Tough times. I used to keep a pair of shoes next to my bed and I would just bang them on the floor a few times so that it kind of sounded like I was up and about. If you were downstairs in the house, you'd be like, oh, Barry's up. But I wasn't. I was just banging on the floor with my chairs. It's weird now, because now I'm up at the crack of dawn and out of bed instantly. Anyway, why in the hell am I talking about my sleeping routine? I have no idea. Well, it's because I've got the attention span of a dog in the park, that's why. Right, so here's Nikki. Right, so she's trying to get the girls up for school. They're being stubborn and a big fight starts. But eventually, the girls do get up, they come downstairs, and they go to school. And it's just another normal day. That day, the girls, they go about their classes and they return home at their usual time, which is about 3:30, 4 o'clock. So they're home. They walk into the house. And a minute after being inside of their home, Taz comes running out, screaming and shouting for help. She's seen a police car parked on the next street and she runs towards it. She is screaming, please, please come and help. It's my mum, something horrible has happened. The police officer starts running towards the home and Jazz lets him inside. He sees a complete mess. Something bad has happened here. Taz tells him to look in the downstairs bathroom and it's here that he finds the body of Nikki. The 34-year-old mother is dead in the bathtub and her 2 teenage daughters are screaming their heads off. The officer calls for backup and in the meantime tries to calm the girls down whilst looking around the house for any signs that a killer might still be there. Now there's blood and it's smeared all over the living room carpet. There's blood in the kitchen. There's blood all over the bathroom walls. And there's bloody footprints leading to the front door and out of the house. So the team of police arrive and the girls are taken to a safe place in the police station to deal with the shock. After her body has been examined and the scene has been tested and photographed, Nikki's dead body is removed from the bathtub. Horrible. Horrible, just horrible. Now at this point, police, they're waiting for the coroner to tell them how Nikki died. I mean, of course, from the amount of blood, you would assume stabbing, but there are other marks on her body and she was found in the bathtub. So they wait for answers and they talk to the twins together and they'll say, do you have any idea who might have done this? And at first the girls say no. Police ask, did your mother have a boyfriend? They say, well, yeah, I mean, not so much of a boyfriend, but there was a guy. Robert was his name. But then they tell police, but yeah, there was also Joe. Okay. Well, who was Joe? Well, he's also not really a boyfriend. But there was definitely two of them. Police ask the twins, did these two men, your mother's friends, did they know each other? Did they know that each other existed? And the twins say, yeah, they knew each other existed. There had been lots of arguments in the house, and Robert and Joe had both called Nikki a cheater at one point. And the twins will say she had two boyfriends. So now the police have a little bit of a lead here because they're thinking, could this be the work of a jealous boyfriend? Could it be the work of two jealous boyfriends working together? So they investigate it, but it goes nowhere. Both men have really solid alibis, and police honestly look at them and think, I just don't think either of these men were capable of committing this horrific a crime. So police do, of course, more and more and more searches of the home, homing it as minutely as they can, when they're in Jazz's room and they come across a pair of shoes, which are in a shoebox, taped up. And when they open it, they realise that the shoes, they have a trace of blood on them. And they wonder about these shoes. So they look inside of the shoes and they find something even more disturbing. They find a rolled up sock, and it's been stuffed into the toe of the shoe. And they unroll it, and when they do, they find a clump of hair with a piece of scalp attached to it. Now, the detective who finds it, he says this: there's nothing strange about, finding hair in the home of three females. There's usually hair everywhere when the females are around. But why was there a clump rolled up in a sock, stuffed in a shoe, in a box, taped up? So police are, as I'm sure you are, suspicious. They interview the twins again and they ask them, can you just go through the day for us one more time? What happened on the day? So they start explaining. They got up in the morning, they were late for school, and they had missed the school bus. Okay, stop, say police. You missed the school bus. Well, what were you doing to have missed the bus? Well, they explained, we'd overslept and our mum was shouting at us to get up and get out to school. So when we realised we'd missed the bus, we went to the local gas station and we hitched a ride from a stranger who took us to school. Well, how late were you? Say police. The twins will say, we were only 10 minutes late for school. Classes had just started. Immediately, police checked the CCTV. And sure enough, the girls did arrive late at school, but they were a lot later than 10 minutes. They were over an hour late for school. And the CCTV footage from the gas station proves, they did hitch a ride from a stranger. Okay, then what? Say police. The twins say, well, we went about our school day. We had our classes, we had lunch. Next thing you know, we come home and she's dead. She's dead in the bath. Now at this point, police have cleared any boyfriends. They've ruled out robbery. And the detective in charge knows that right now he has the killers of Nikki sitting in front of him. And so the sisters are separated. They're taken into different interview rooms. And after pushing and prodding from the police, the whole story begins to unfold from the teenagers. The morning had started as I described. It was a battle to get the girls out of bed and out to school. Eventually, the girls come downstairs and Nikki is in the kitchen and she's making coffee. A screaming match begins about how they will be late for school. During the screaming match, Jazz grabs a vase, a heavy ceramic vase, and she strikes her mother over the head with it. And Nikki falls to the kitchen floor. When she's down, Taz grabs a knife, a long, sharp bread knife, and she begins to stab her mother in the chest. Blood starts pouring out of Nikki. As she's being stabbed, Jazz gets a piece of ribbon from a nearby shelf and she wraps the ribbon around her mother's throat and begins to choke her. Now, Nikki is doing her absolute best to fight back, and she bites Taz hard on the arm. So when she does this, Taz drops the knife, and Nikki sees this as her chance for freedom. Remember I said there were bloody footprints leading up to the front door and out of the house? Well, these are Nikki's. She gets up from the attack on the kitchen floor and she runs out of the house. She runs to the next door neighbour and she's screaming for help. She rings the doorbell and there's no answer. The neighbour hears the screams, hears the doorbell, but doesn't get up to answer. It's at this point that Jazz and Taz grab their mother and they drag her back into the house. They begin to stab her again. Nikki will have a total of 87 stab wounds to her body. Once they finish stabbing her, they drag her to the bathroom. Police say, describe it. And Taz says, I think I had her hands and Jazz her feet. It's kind of a blur now. It was like a joint effort. She was heavy. We struggled to carry her. We just put her in the bathtub and we turned the water on. And it's at this point, as they're pushing their mother's head under the water, she's screaming at her daughters, kill me right now, because if you don't, I will kill you. They continue to struggle to get her head under the water, but eventually, between the loss of blood, the strangulation, and the stab wounds, Nikki's body begins to give up the fight. Police ask, did she say anything as she was dying? And both girls, interviewed in separate rooms, will say yes, she did. Nikki's last words to her daughter were, I hate you. Then, with Nikki dead, the girls cleaned themselves up. They put their clothing into bags. The knife, the ribbon, the broken vase, it all went into bags, and they went to hitch a ride to school and go through the school day as if everything was normal. They attended all their classes, they sat in the lunchroom as if nothing had happened. Police ask, when you went to school that day, did you know you had killed your mother? And Jazz says, yes, we knew she was dead. The police officer will say, they would cry a lot, but it was tearless crying. When I would ask them to describe their mother, it was just insults. So on the way to school that day, the girls had thrown the bags with the clothing and the weapons into the woods. Now, police found these without too much searching. And so the case was solved. This was it. It was over. It was fucking horrific. It was unbelievable. But it was solved. It was done. Why they felt the need to go to such horrendous lengths, well, that part of it was never solved. Plenty of teenagers hate their parents, but this is something entirely different. So the trial started. Both are charged with voluntary manslaughter. They confess, and both Taz and Jazz are sentenced to 30 years each in prison, where they remain right now. They're in separate facilities in the Georgia area. They have limited contact with other family members. By the time they both get out of prison, they will be 40 years old, an age that they never let their mother Nikki reach. Mum, I do love you. It's been really hard, all of us being in this house and having problems forgiving each other. But I'm ready to move on, Mum. The more we argue, the worse it gets for us. And we've been getting on better for the past 2 weeks, so let's keep it going. We can work everything out, and we can be a family. Just let me know what you think. Love, Jazz. And so ends the story. I said it was a shit show, and it was a mess. A horrific mess. Yeah. Something really interests me just in this sort of, well, the twin thing. Obviously, you know I'm well into the twin thing. But there's just something about this sort of history repeating itself. I mean, I know there wasn't a pattern of murder in the family, but this sort of like relationship between mother and daughter and grandmother, and what that sort of, what that cycle of those relationships is just, what a horrendous end for poor Nikki. Yeah. And I would love it if there was a lot more information on the twins, on the girls. I mean, really all that you've got to go off is sort of police saying they were kind of just void of emotion. Like, they just had very, very little emotion. They would cry, but it was so fake. And they've never really offered up any greater reason other than they just didn't have a great relationship with their mum. But yeah, well, that's millions upon billions of people around the world. They don't go around creating acts like that. No, they do not. So yeah, I know. The other thing that comes with it is there is a lot of outrage about the fact that they didn't get life in prison. But again, it's that age thing. You know, they committed this as teenagers. If they'd done this as adults, I have no doubt they would be in prison for life, but they weren't adults when they did it. You know, they were teenagers. So 30 years is a long time to give to a 16-year-old. But there was a huge uprising of people going, it's just not long enough, because they'll get out of prison. They'll get out of prison in their 40s, and that's unbelievable, because in your 40s you can still go on, you can live your life, but they never obviously ever gave their mother the opportunity to do that. So yeah, so that's the end of this episode. It's been a joy. I feel like I've got something to say, but and now I can't remember what it is. I know what it is. It's come back to me. Right, 1978. Now, if you've been on social media, so if you've been on the Facebook group, or you've been on Instagram or Twitter, you'll see I've sort of reached out and said, talk to me about your experience of 1978. Now, I'm going somewhere with this. I'm not just asking for random stories. You might not have been born, that's fine. If you weren't, exclude yourself from this. But if you do have a particularly strong memory of a time in 1978, regardless of where you lived, regardless of what was happening, send me a message, jot it down in an email, just do whatever, just get in touch with me. Yeah, I'm just, because I've got something going on, and I just want to, yeah, reach out to you and say 1978, talk to me about it. Okay, I'm going to go. I'm just going to say thank you all very, very much for those who got in touch to say happy birthday when it was my 21st last weekend. That was really nice of you. Thanks very much. And until the next time that we speak, stay safe, stay well, stay indoors. Okay, goodbye.
It didn't affect me really one way or the other. I would imagine from the look on his face, let's get it on, let's do it, let's get it over. Let's get it on, let's do it, let's get it over.